Ladies and gentlemen, listeners, lovers, and friends, welcome back to the podcast. I'm your host, Jim Fogarty, coming to you up above Dave Grohl Alley in beautiful downtown Warren, and we are going to talk about an event happening in beautiful downtown Warren next month in August. Before we get to that, though, and our guest, I want to shout out Station Square Restaurant, Salvatore's Italian Grill, Modern Methods Brewery, Brokers Realty, and Prosperity Partners, our Season 4 sponsors. And since this may be the last season of the prod, I want to bring back some guests, especially this young man here who he said a couple minutes ago, I'm getting old and fat. But he's so good looking, man, that I wanted to give him an opportunity to be on camera now that we have, the first time you were on the show, we didn't have video. Yeah. He's putting his makeup on very nicely. He's been with our makeup artist before the show.
Getting my eyebrow hairs back in place.
Yeah, nose hairs too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, looking fit over there. Former WBC, WBO, Ring Magazine lineal middleweight champion, Mr. Kelly Pavlik.
Well, I appreciate being on, and it's always a blast. That's for sure.
I was excited that you were coming on again. We've been texting back and forth, and you've got a couple events you had an event recently with some amateur boxing, and you got an event coming up here on August 2nd. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I have my charitable organization, Kelly Pavlik Charitable Organization, and it's a lot. I got probably 160 some kids right now involved in my program that I do strength conditioning, which is a big love of mine, every bit as much as coaching boxing. I have probably 60 kids at the boxing gym and around about close to 100, if not somewhere up there, doing strength conditioning. Wow. It's free to all the kids, 4th through 12th grade. Sometimes I get a sibling, that might be in 2nd or 3rd, and I'll allow them to work out. And again, free to them. Also in my program, while we're trying to get started, I've teamed up with PsyCare. I'm not yet using their services until the funding. As we were talking earlier, a lot of this comes down to just trying to get the funding. Like right now, I'm funding both gyms. You know what I mean? The one in Columbiana is a for-profit, but I'm getting my equipment's getting beat up. The boxing gym, I did all the renovation and all the brand new boxing equipment. So it's tough, but we're moving forward, and I think that I'm hoping by the first of the year, the whole project is up and running.
Yeah, so, because you've got some educational things that you're looking to do too with these kids.
The tutoring, counseling, after-school meal programs. So what I have, the only way to kind of keep and be able to sustain it is put on these fundraisers, and I've been doing the boxing shows, which help somewhat for a month or two. I get a lot of the kids, the local talent, plus I get the kids that I'm training and that are fighting, and I put them on, and I think the people like it. I've put one on back in May at the Metroplex, and it was a nice turnout. I had my first one was back in November, right after Thanksgiving, and it was a really nice turnout. So these are the ways right now to kind of keep everything, moving forward and also keep the kids active.
Yeah, I like how you're branching out and bringing it to Warren, Ohio. Mm-hmm. And now I'm very super conscious. I'm looking over at my man Liam because he always says, you say Warren like as it's worn out, like Warren, W-O-R-N, instead of W-A-R-R-E-N, Warren. So I'm going to try to be conscious about that. You're bringing it to downtown Warren, Ohio.
If you pronounce it as you spell it, it's kind of like Warren.
Yeah.
Warren.
Warren. Why bring it to Warren now, though? Because you had a nice show at the Metroplex?
Yeah. Well, okay, so that's another big one. I hate saying this because it sounds like I'm coming off, cocky or
you arrogant prick.
Egotistical, I guess. But I'm not. I'm just being dead serious on it and very straightforward. More of a, believe it or not, national figure. Like I to this day get people, big boxing pages, groups, boxing companies, equipment companies. So I'm a national charitable too. It's just you got to crawl before you walk type thing. And of course, I want to start off in my home city. But Tri-County, I've already been in talks with the Niles mayor. I've been in talk with the Cortland mayor.
Nice.
I'm working on getting. So another part of the organization is I'm going to have one main facility in Boardman here eventually. This is the vision. A 80,000 square foot building where we could host the boxing, the strength conditioning, tutoring, counseling, pickleball, basketball court, things that'll keep the kids in there. You know what I mean? A lot of these kids don't have anything to do. And when I first started setting up the charitable organization, it was kind of like, what can I do to keep them out of trouble? So 2 hours a day at boxing, that's great. That's 2 hours that they're not out in the street. And then also they may be tired after and go home and want to rest. And it gives them something to look forward to. And then after that, sitting down with the people on the board, it was, well, not many people box, so I got a lot of kids that I was doing strength conditioning with in Columbiana, and some of the parents I would see come in and sometimes not sign their kid up for strength conditioning because they couldn't afford the $200 a month. And then if they had siblings, they couldn't. So then I was like, you know what? Why couldn't I add strength conditioning into this? More kids. There's going to be more kids involved in sports than just boxing. So then I started kind of thinking I could put hubs in the Tri-County area and have the main facility. Boxing will be at one location, but the hubs will be able to provide counseling, tutoring, and health and wellness, strength and conditioning. And now it's actually kind of getting to a point like where I still want to do the hubs, but I had Lisbon probation juvenile system. They want to use my services for health and wellness for the kids. ATG down in Lisbon, Ohio, they want to use my services. So I'll be going there and providing the strength conditioning and health and wellness to the kids. And that's another way. And it helps the charitable with the funding a little bit. The charitable will make some money off that. And because the big thing for me is sustainability. Nothing worse than having this going for 2 years and having all these kids and then just not being able to come out of pocket anymore.
Yeah, right.
And tell them, hey, you got to go home. I'm right now funding all of this myself, and here and there these fundraisers help a little bit. I've had some sponsors, and I'm very thankful for that. But when you're talking about 100 some kids, and that's only the very beginning of this, and 2 locations, which I'm really wanting to get. One here in Trumbull County and one more in Columbiana County. That's a lot of money. Just this boxing gym I put in, with the renovation and the equipment alone was a lot of money. So, I'm trying my best. I'm wearing thin, but this is a project that I took on, and I go till I'm not done till the project's finished.
That's why you're a champ.
Yeah, I guess, and sometimes I could bite you in the butt, but I think in this situation, this is for a positive thing.
Well, they always say it's darkest before the dawn.
Yeah.
And so sometimes we got to go through these tribulations to kind of get out on the other side.
Oh, absolutely. And every time you think you're right about there, you get hit with another side blow or, curveball. And it's just about getting through it because, we're rolling now. Being able to pick up these, the Lisbon probation, that's showing that the awareness is out there. I'm able to provide the services to these kids, which is a huge part of it. The kids at the boxing and the strength conditioning in Columbiana, that's huge. Like getting these kids moving. A lot of them need it. A lot of these kids need to be there, and I can see that. We try our best right now until the food the program. I'm able to implement that into the charitable organization. Like Fridays, we get pizza or donuts, and somebody like we got White House Farms in Columbiana County. They're known for their donuts, right? They're phenomenal. A lot of these kids never and probably never will ever have a White House donut, so we make it a point to bring those in, on Friday for the kids to have that. So again, we're doing everything. The services are out there, but I really want to get this project to 100% of where I want it to be. So,
When you talk about the kids, are most of these kids like at-risk kids, or they come from less fortunate families, or is it just a wide mix? Like,
another good question. It started off at risk, underprivileged. Okay. But again, as far as I'll use Columbiana as an example, I have a handful of parents that bring their kids in, and then like I said before, some just couldn't afford it. And that was hard, so I would knock the price down for them. And well, how do you? And then there were some that would like put their kid in there, and they had a sibling that couldn't. So I go, how do you tell a 13-year-old kid that he can't come train because his parents might do just a little bit too good to fall in the underprivileged? So no, you can't come here. So I open it up to all the kids, but we're obviously targeting at-risk, underprivileged. So, but any kid, pretty much 10 years old, 4th through 12th grade, I take in and train them.
Now, here's another question I have, because we were talking about it on the elevator up. I came down to get Kelly in the lobby and like, hey, what's going on? He's like, man, I got this going on, that going on. I said, you got to be careful not to wear yourself thin. How do you separate yourself from those, separate and give enough time to each kid in each location? You have people on staff that are working with you?
Well, that's the big no. I got some helpers. I literally just picked up a boxer who is 24 years old, good kid. He got his certification. He'll be helping out.
What's the certification, like a personal training?
Personal training,
oh, cool.
Yeah. So I want to make sure all my staff has that. But no, I mean, that until the funding comes in, with the amount going out right now, and then you bring a staff in, it's almost impossible. So
what about volunteers? You get any volunteers to come help out?
Yeah, but that's hard. And with the 501c3, not many people are going to volunteer 40 hours a week or 30 hours a week without getting paid, and then that throws a red flag to the state. Now, this is going off of what some of the people with the IRS that are knowledgeable in the 501c3 are telling me, because when I first opened, I was like, we'll do this all ourselves until we could get to that point, and then we'll get some people to help. And they were like, listen, if you get people to help and they're doing that and you're not paying them, it throws a red flag. So I don't want to do anything that throws a red flag for this. And so I'm just kind of going by what these people, these experts know. And my family's been troopers. My son comes to the boxing gym. He helps with the kids, helps my wife keep them kind of, in line. My daughter covers a lot of my Columbiana classes. She's certified. She's 18 now.
I was just going to ask you.
Yeah, and she loves strength and conditioning, but, of course, it's all my regimen. So that's kind of the help right now. The family, like, they've been great. They, I'm pretty much 9 a.m. till 9 p.m., but the good part is I get to get home for a little bit. Now it's summer, like me and my son do stuff, or he'll come to the gym. My daughter comes to the gym, and I get to see him. My wife's helping. So, but the goal is hopefully here in the next, for me, hopefully next couple months, to be able to really start putting a staff together, put a marketing person out there to go and kind of get the awareness out. Secretaries, God knows I need a secretary. I got one right now at the Columbiana gym. She's pretty much, kind of like part-time and just dealing with the for-profit part of the gym. So, there's overbooking on my part. There's interviews and things that I need to do. There's, for the fight coming up, there's a lot of things that need done for that. And sometimes I'm getting to them a week late. It's a struggle. But at the same time, I had that conversation with my dad and my wife, and my wife made a good point. I was like, I don't know how much longer I'm going to be able to keep going at this rate. And she's like, well, here's the good news, though. You're where you want it to be. 4 years ago when you started this, it was meetings and meetings with everybody, and it was just like the wheel kept turning, but you were not going anywhere. Now you're moving. This project is, going forward, and this is where you wanted to be. You wanted to have the athletes. You wanted to have the awareness out. You wanted to have the boxing gym, and you got it all now. So,
Well, I get a little concerned because I know you're a young man at 42 years old, but you're not a young man at 42 years old. And, you don't want to spread yourself too thin. We got to get you some volunteers and got to raise some money for you.
Yeah.
We got to get some money. People that are out there listening, like, it's a very simple website. If you go to kellypavlikcharitableorganization.org, you can donate right on the site. And that pays for all the training and the kids and the food and all these things. The things that Kelly's going to do moving forward too, the free educational tutoring and the counseling services. And
that's been a hard part, even for me, because, I got hollered at. A good friend, Joe Schiavone. They worked, they were representing my team when I was fighting.
Yeah.
And I had talking to him the one day and I said, he's like, well, why don't you go ask this person? And I asked this politician and I was like, dude, I hate doing that. Like, I never did. I was always the person helping, and still am pretty much. And he got mad. He kind of swore at me a little bit. He was like, Kelly, he's like, you're not asking for a personal loan. He's like, this is huge. Like, you got to get out there and ask. And I'm working on that part of it. It's still tough. But
tell Joe, hey, come on, we'll go out there together.
Yeah, right.
All right. And when you guys come to Trumbull County, we can take you around too and maybe hit that up.
We could do that. So I definitely want to start getting out to Trumbull County. I thought it would be great to put a fight show on out here. I want to make the presence, people aware that what I'm trying to do. And I think a lot of the athletes out here, people sometimes, we're Trumbull County, we're Mahoning County, we're Columbiana. We're all Northeast Ohio.
Amen.
And if we could, up it and bring some positivity to the area and help kids and even make these athletes, I'll have athletes in a program that can't afford to get personal training. If we could build them up and get them D1, D2, boxers, everything, that's the whole goal.
Well, even, I was thinking about this earlier because 100 kids, you have to have 100 kids in the boxing program or 60
I've
kids?
had since I've started, and I would say October, the boxing, I probably have over 100, okay?
Wow.
But the kids, they come and go.
Yeah.
I say right now, active 45 to between 45 and 50 kids.
That's still a lot of kids.
Yeah. Through the strength and conditioning, and just Columbiana alone, I was at one point over 100 some kids, and right now I'm probably at about 55 total.
So 45 kids you're training now. Even if 10% went to go on and have, fights or kind of, less than probably 10% are going to do anything with amateur professional boxing later on. However, like the skill set that you're teaching them translates beyond just that competition part of it or that amateur part of it. Even look at like a guy like Joe, Joe Schiavone. He's a judge down in Mahoning County. He was a state rep. He ran for governor, et cetera, et cetera. He's an attorney with, I forget the firm. I apologize, Joe.
I think it was Bush and Schiavone or.
Yeah, but he's got another firm now. Remember when we did Titletown night or the Evening of Champions night in Youngstown, they were like one of the big sponsors.
Oh.
But, kind of using him as an example, Joe didn't fight, had some amateur fights, didn't fight pro or whatever, but the type of confidence that it instills, the type of grit it instills in kids to come back from adversity, to learn about themselves. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It does. It again, you're hoping maybe that this kid goes on to do something and don't get in trouble. Most importantly, it gives them structure, it gives them things to look forward to, things to work hard for. It kind of opens their eyes a little bit, It gets them out of their regular day, the monotonous, go to school or go hang out with this kid or get in trouble. It kind of breaks that up a lot and gets them to be able to socialize with other kids from other areas. There's so many benefits to it. And that's just the health and wellness part of it, getting them into the gym, working them out. 2 hours, hour and a half is a plus. But when you start adding in if they need the counseling, the tutoring for school, get these kids, how many of them, especially when school's in session, come to the gym right from school and don't have any time to eat, or maybe there's nothing at home for them to eat, and they're training on an empty stomach. So the food program I'm really pushing for really hard to get that in, and so there's a lot, and I think I wish tomorrow I could have this all set up, but I'm hoping by winter, that I have at least everything that my program offers intact and able to, have the kids use.
Yeah, well, I mean, Rome wasn't built in a day. We got together 4 years ago. It was like episode 41, and we talked mostly about your boxing career and how that went. And I thought it was important to have you on again. We can obviously still talk boxing, but we kind of covered that. But this organization that you started has an opportunity to, like you say, provide for kids and expose them to other things that are maybe beyond their reach right now. And they're training with a former champion that went through adversity, and you have your own trials and tribulations. So they're getting one-on-one experience with you.
Yeah,
I mean, that's incredible, man.
I mean, I thought of I
want to join.
Yeah, right. I thought of different things too, like that I really want to do. The friends I've just met, that have had some setbacks, but they're on the right page again and doing wonderful things, like to bring them in and be motivational speakers a couple times a year. Maurice Claret, guys like that. I built a close relationship with him. Maurice is out there right now. He's a businessman. He runs charitable organizations. He gives motivational speeches. A guy that was at the highest level, and have him come talk to the kids. Those are the things, there's just, it's kind of endless. Eventually, if we could get to where I want to be, maybe working in with trade schools, and because you're right, not every kid, you always hear, if you could just reach one kid. Well, me, my goal is, I want to reach more than one kid, right? Like I want this to be legit, but in reality, people don't realize just how hard it is to get a D1 scholarship for sports, or to become a world champion boxer. Like, it's a needle in a haystack, a big haystack. So getting these guys, kids into trade schools, or finding what talent they do have. How many kids go? How many artists are out there? I'll use a couple kids at my gym as an example. They're out of school now, but if they were in school and that was noticed, these kids probably could have a different life, or a different career. They were good boxers, but they're unbelievable artists, and so it just makes you wonder, like, if we could find some of these hidden talents in the kids, talk to them when you have the time to sit them down and say, hey, what do you like? What are you good at aside from boxing or sports? Kid may say, hey, you know what? I like building stuff in my backyard. Well, now that opens up, that kind of gives you an idea of what they could do, and they may be good at it. Another kid says, I like drawing. I'm really good. Well, draw me a picture, and he draws me something that is phenomenal, Well, I think maybe you could direct them at that point. You could talk to the schools. You could talk to the guidance counselors and say, or, hey, did you see this? This kid, did you know about this? There's different things that you could do, and it's kind of endless. But it's just the part of being able to focus on that while running everything, and that's where, again, if I could get to where I want it to be with some help, that's going to be a big part.
Yeah, because even you're in the ring, you're one guy. Mm-hmm. Boxing is they call it the loneliest sport. But you got a trainer, you got a cut man, you got managers, you got advisors. I know your dad was a big part of your career and that kind of stuff. I can't help but to think, because one of my questions is, you don't have to do this. Like, why are you doing this? But before I even though I just asked the question, I think about, because I'm going to plug your book too, because I think it's cool. In this book, the Kelly Pavlik, the Ghost Pavlik book, The Pride of Youngstown, you talk about, and we talked about before on the show and other times as well, but you meeting Harry Arroyo at Southside when your mom took you, and and Harry's such a stand-up guy and a lot of positive energy. Is this kind of your way of doing the same thing that maybe Harry did for you, for these other kids?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I have, even when I won the world title, I always was involved with charities. I would always put on golf outings, whether it was for Akron or Make-A-Wish. I loved doing that, and I always did it under the radar. Never really wanted the media. attention. You know what I mean? This was kind of like me wanting to just do my own thing and didn't need the attention for it. Now, when you start running your own organization, you kind of have to use the media for that at that point because you want the awareness out there. But I've always loved working with these athletes. Okay, and then it started off going back again. It was you seeing these kids and they just don't have the money to pay that, or you can see that some of the kids are troubled. Like you tell them to do something, just their attitude, and it's kind of like, oh, I don't like the way he's, acting right now.
That's not going to be a good attitude to make you successful in life later on.
Yeah, or go down the wrong path. So helping, I've always loved helping people. You know what I mean? I really have. There's been many situations where I have. So now that I'm retired, my kids are older. Yes, this is something I love, and I love strength conditioning. I love coaching boxing. Why not add it all into the mix and be able to set some positive things for these young kids, And again, sports ain't everything. We know that. It's a big part. It really is.
Sure.
It again, tires kids out. It gives them something to look forward to. It helps with, creating structure in their life. But the added stuff, the counseling, the tutoring, yeah, not every kid's going to need counseling, right? I got kids in there that, for the most part come from a good home, but it don't mean that they may have things that are bothering them. So there's just a lot of things that I want to kind of just get to see how much of a positive effect it can have. And it was kind of funny too, because now that we're talking about it, I was talking with my wife, and I was like, this might sound very egotistical too, or selfish, but I was like, I want to like put out champions, man. I want like D1 players, right? For my strength conditioning, because I take a lot of pride in strength conditioning. I researched the crap out of that, and then I was like, and I also want like the boxing, and I want those success stories. I was like, I want that kid that was in juvenile maybe 3 times just say, you know what, like I ain't got in trouble in 3 years. I want that kid that been getting bad grades on his report card, saying, hey, I'm getting C's and B's now, I want that success story. And my wife goes, well, she goes, if I was sending one of our kids to someplace like that, she's like, that's what I'm going to want, because the more you want it, the better it's going to be for the kids, the better the program's going to be.
Yeah.
So, and that's kind of where I'm at. Like, I really think about that all the time. Like, how far could I really take this, and how much can it really benefit all the kids? Sometimes you get tunnel vision if you get one real good athlete. A lot of people may just like focus on that athlete. You know what I mean? In this, you can't do that, and that's the big part. And you get the help, you'll have people to help with all of it too. So, but it's exciting to see, if once I get to that point where I want it to be on doing that.
I love it. It's a family affair. You mentioned your daughter Sydney's 18 now.
Yeah.
And your son is 14 now?
15.
He's 15.
Yeah.
So the last time we talked, he was into baseball and playing, and Sydney was into dance and that kind of stuff. And is she graduated high school?
Yeah, she just graduated.
Wow. Well, congrats on that.
Thank you.
Yeah. How did, just as a side note, because I really want to talk about the boxing stuff, but like, did you rate them hands E for everyone on any of Sydney's dates? Did you have to, because we were talking last time, she was like 14.
Yeah.
All the girls are probably coming around a little, or the boys are starting to come around a little bit now,
No, I know. That's funny, and it's funny you bring that up. So I always say I'm not going to be that guy. Like, obviously, it's my daughter, my baby girl, and but I never came off like that. I don't want to be that parent like, hey, because you always thought of like this. What if the other parent of the boyfriend?
Yeah.
The kid's a really good kid, right?
Yeah.
And the parent did a heck of a job raising him. And then I do what most fathers do. I say, if you hurt her or anything, I'm gonna take you out and do this. Well, what's the parent of that son probably? Like, that's my son, right?
Yeah.
Right. Wait a minute, you threatened my, like, think about it like that,
right.
But I never wanted to come off like that. So, but I did one time. It was kind of funny. It was during COVID, and I think she was 14, or 13, 14, and these kids were walking around the neighborhood, and she knew them, and we actually knew their family, and they came over in the yard and they were talking. I looked at my wife. I was like, I'm gonna mess with her, right? So I was still doing a power lift, and I had this, tank top on, but like yellow stains on it because I wasn't going anywhere and I didn't care. And she's out in the yard talking to him, so I just opened the door and I put my arm up on top like this and lean against it, and I say, "Hey, Sid, is there a problem?" And I'm looking at the kids, and she's like, "No, Dad." And I can see her and I was like, "All right," and I shut the door, and they literally started walking away. And she came in, "Dad, why would you do that?" We were laughing so hard, it was just one of those things. But yeah, it's funny.
Your boy's, you said 15. He's in high school now. Is he was doing baseball before, and you were saying, "Hey, I'd like to get him into jiu-jitsu," and you wanted him to, not as a professional, but to box so he could learn, so he could handle himself. He has confidence, and you always want the, what do they say, like a warrior in the garden versus a gardener in the war. Just to be prepared.
Exactly.
Does he do any of that stuff now? Are you training him?
So yeah, he's big. He's a big kid.
Is he?
Yeah. When I say that, not big, overweight, but he's my height.
I was just gonna ask you, is he tall as you? Yeah.
Same exact height as me at 15.
Wow.
He's 189 pounds. He is playing football.
He's 189 pounds?
Yeah. He weighs
You're
more
6'2",
now.
right?
Yeah.
Holy shit.
He weighs more now than I did pretty much my entire adult life.
Wow.
Yeah, that's going back to just how these kids, got the same size shoes as me, 14. Playing football, played baseball last year. I got him to finally spar, and he wanted to. I didn't force him. It was probably about 2 months ago at the boxing gym. He got in the ring and sparred and did actually pretty good.
Awesome.
And he was really excited about it. And I was trying to diffuse it as much as possible. No, yeah, well, the kid, you're not boxing. So that way he didn't get a itch to do it. He wrestled for a while.
Oh, that's cool.
Now he's really into basketball and football.
Is he at Canfield or
Boardman?
Oh, Boardman.
Yeah.
And you're the second gym. You opened MiGym in Columbiana, and then you have the second gym in Boardman.
The boxing is in Boardman.
On South Avenue?
No, right on the corner of Market and McClure.
On Market
right by
and
the
McClure.
hospital.
Oh, okay.
So if anybody's familiar with Bruno Brothers Pizza, I'm in that plaza. I'm between the Republican headquarters and Sandy B's dance studio.
Okay.
So,
your daughter she doesn't dance anymore, does she?
No, she quit her beginning of her junior year.
Okay.
So,
but she's training over at the gym, so that's cool too. I love that it's a family affair.
We believe in the fresh, the healthy, the good. Station Square proudly offers new seasonally available non-GMO ingredients along with organic beef options, all-natural non-GMO poultry, and fresh seafood delivered daily. Station Square, where the magic happens.
Let Salvatore's Howland host your special event in their new banquet facility. Up to 150 guests will enjoy a metropolitan vibe, full-service bar, and customized menu. Call 330-609-7777 or visit salvatoreshowland.com.
With that buzz of select Brazilian Dolce coffee beans, that brew Ipanema's seductively sweet beach coffee, they mingle a flawless measure of their crisp Darlene lager. Somehow, somewhere in a secret lab with modern methods, they blend the perfectly balanced, light, uplifting, gold medal winning brew known as the Percolator. Available at Modern Methods Tap Room or the new Darlene Lounge on Courthouse Square in downtown Warren.
In society where kids aren't playing outside as much and they're not doing as much, I want to say competitive stuff. I mean, we never had esports, right? Now there's esports, and my son was telling me the other day, him and his buddy are getting to some tournament. He's 11 now, and he's going to do I don't know if it's a Fortnite or Roblox or one of these things. He's doing a tournament.
Probably Fortnite.
Yeah, and now this week he's got basketball camp, soccer camp, and we'll probably won't do jiu-jitsu because we have all these camps this week. But, do you find it difficult to train kids of today's mindset that are more into the esports and that kind of stuff, or I guess, like, what's the attitude of these kids? I'm always curious because the generations kind of change. Even when we were talking before, I've got this Hagler Hearns shirt on, and we were talking earlier about how nutrition is different now and kids are different now, and how boxers today, their skill set, or basketball players or any sport, those skill sets today in strength and training are better today than they were back then, even though those were great fighters, or like Jordan was great. But the mentality of it, is the mentality of it different, these kids, than when you think we were growing up?
Yeah, I observe a lot, no matter what it is. If I'm just watching sports, or if I'm at a function or an event, when we were kids, and I'll use our age group because I think we were like one of the last of that time. We had bikes. There wasn't cell phones when we were growing up. I was probably 12 when pagers were big. We were kind of just starting to get into that a little bit. We had Nintendo, right? Mm-hmm. Nintendo was cool, don't get me wrong, but it was never enough to keep us in the house for days at a time. It was like, yeah, we play it for a little bit and then go outside and play, and stay active. So that was a big part too. I think today, listen, I almost went down that rabbit hole during quarantine because I didn't have anything to do, right? I closed my gym down for 3 months. I was stressed about that. But next thing I know, it's like 4 o'clock in the morning. I'm still playing Grand Theft Auto. And my son's like, Dad, I thought you got that for me. And I'm like, yeah, I did, but just wait, And so I could see where kids get caught up in that. But people also always say, like, oh, well, this, that. I went to the National Boxing Tournament last month, and they had 4 rings. Never, even when I was boxing amateurs, did I see 4 rings set up. And these fights were going from, they had a morning session, 12 to 6 p.m., and then a night session from 6 o'clock till midnight. And
these are all Golden Gloves guys?
These are just national tournament.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Where was it at?
In Wichita, Kansas.
Oh, wow.
So these athletes are out there. They're yes, you can still coach them. People who sit back, these are and say that, are the ones that are not really involved much with the sports and just kind of seeing it from, I don't know what perspective, but they're still out there. Like, don't get me wrong. For the most part, yes, kids on a regular basis are in the house more or gaming, but there's future in that. Unfortunately, I hate to say it like that.
Yeah, right.
But there's kids, if they're good enough, they can make a living off that, technology, software, or just gaming in general. But your athletes, they're out there. These kids, they could play. They weren't better back then. They weren't tougher. You see in professional, the first thing a lot of people like to go to, like even in professional sports, is, oh, it's softer. It's not like it used to be. Or Terry Bradshaw, or this guy. They didn't throw penalties. A little different times too.
Sure.
You had maybe a 6'3", 260 sloppy tight defensive end coming, and you got guys today like Myles Garrett, 6'5", 270, that runs a 4.5 40, hitting you without looking, and the injuries are sky high now. Yeah, there's more awareness, but these guys are hitting at higher rates, higher speed, higher velocity. These injuries, the human body can only take so much. So there's not a difference as far as athletes. I know a lot of people, my era or back in my day, we all fall into that. But for the most part, no, it's not different. It really ain't. The kid's strong-minded, and he wants to do it, and he's dedicated. He's going to come in, and it's the same way as if I was training back in the early 90s, mid-90s. There's not a difference. Yes, you got some more advancement in training, not just equipment. A good strength and conditioning coach evolves too, and they progress, and you got to go out and research and see what's the new thing. Like for me, the speed of the game in every sport is far advanced from even when I was a kid.
Yeah.
Okay, these kids are not, it used to be the 125s if you're 11 and 12, or 120s. Now it's 160 because these kids are that big. Not only are they that big, but they can run, you know. So the speed I work on a lot of explosive, fast twitch, you know, different things like that, functional strength training. And you have to, you know, keep up on it. So it was a long rant for me right now, but overall, no, it's not that different. You know, it's not. It's these kids they want to play sports and they can play and they train hard. You know, I got kids and right now that do my strength conditioning in my program, and then they go to football practice, they come home and they go back out with their friends and they play football. It's still out there. You know, we haven't yet fully went all cyber or, you know, software. You still have kids out playing. They are hitting each other. They're not softer than they were 30 years ago or 40 years ago. You know, NBA, people use that. Yeah, it might be because they call fouls now. You know, it's not the player's fault. You know, it's the way that the game is played. And don't make the NBA players softer. You know, if the rules were the same as they were in the 80s and 90s, you better believe these guys would be playing the same way.
Yeah,
you
right.
know, there's no boxers are softer. You know, actually the boxers, in my opinion, are tougher. They a lot more injuries, head trauma because of the force that they're getting hit with now. Big difference.
Probably better nutrition, and now I think, you know, I always think back in the day when Evander Holyfield was like lifting weights. And everyone was like, he's like too muscle bound or whatever. And he's, you know, arguably the greatest cruiserweight of all time. And in the conversation is one of the top heavyweights. But to have that mental toughness outside of sports carries on in life. So I think it's really cool that you're bringing these kids in that maybe are not, because it's also easier probably to coach someone who's not your son or not your daughter. I know, like, in coaching my son, he listens and he does the things, but, like, if it's just me and him and I try to say, oh, hey, try to kick the ball this way or try to, you know, throw the right cross that way or do this jiu-jitsu move, you know. I mean, there's only so many things I can teach him anyways. He'll get kind of resistant to that. So having somebody like you or another coach, you know, is probably a good thing for these kids to develop not only the resiliency to listen to adults and to, or I shouldn't even say adults, but like someone who's been through it, that building that resiliency, but also building that resiliency mentally as well. You know, using kind of mental toughness for life.
Yeah, it's tough. Going back to that, even with using someone different. I mean, my son, I was actually talking to when my daughter was playing baseball. The guy owned the big facility that had batting cages. He was a women's softball coach and hitting instructor, and he was like, oh yeah, he's like, I sent my daughter to another guy. I'm like, what? You have all this here? You got all this money? Right. He's like, oh, she don't listen to me. And wouldn't you know, like a year later, when I first started working with my son, he wouldn't listen. So I was like, I sent him off to a buddy of mine that does that out in Salem, just so he would get out there and see that, like, I'm not as crazy as he thinks, right? You know, like, you got to do this stuff. And then he went out there, and then after a couple months, he was like, yeah, Dad, I'll come work with you. And ever since, like, we built that relationship. Now, I will say, you know, and not trying to contradict, it was a little different back then, too, like in our time. Like, at least for me, like, every kid I knew and me, if your father was out there coaching you or telling you what to do, you're, like, listening. And I have noticed that today, kids don't take to the parents as much when it comes to coaching. Like, they'll listen because they know they have to, but they don't want to, right? Or they want to argue with you a little more because, no, that's not right, because you're their parent, right? Yeah. So I see a lot of kids going off, but, you know, that don't shift the way sports are played or anything, or don't make them softer.
You ever think about, or have you ever played bringing in technology as an enhancement to the training? And the only reason I say that is because we have, I think it's called Thrill of the Fight. You ever play that game, Thrill of the Fight, on Oculus?
Oh yeah, I've seen that.
Man, it's all like, it's not going to teach you proper form and proper, you know, proper moves, but it's a great cardio workout, and you're bobbing and weaving to avoid punches, you know, in the kind of metaverse.
We actually tried that. My first show I put on back in November, me and Jeff Ondash were going at each other in virtual reality.
Oh, that's cool.
But we couldn't get the big screen up. Joe Danny, our buddy from Youngstown, who's a software guy, we couldn't get that going. But I like it. I never really want to get into the point of, they have things now that can tell you like what muscle is engaging when you take off. A part of me wants to use that. I think it's important because I like to really implement factual training, with my athletes. Like, what are you doing? I think weights are good. I think weights have their place. But in all reality, the muscles that you engage to squat, very rarely in any sport are you using. Deadlift really, I think, should be cut out with athletes unless you're a power lifter. None of the muscles you use to engage and deadlift do you use in any sport. So going back to that, seeing, with the technology, what muscles are engaging on certain exercises, I think is cool. The farthest I go right now, and I'm not opposed to any of that, the farthest I go is I have like these pods and their reaction time.
Oh, that's cool.
And I'll mix it up so
where you have to touch them.
Mm-hmm,
Yeah,
and colors and it really does help. And then now I added even more to it, so I'm big on core training for athletes. So instead of just having a guy stand on a Bosu ball and on one leg or do that, I'll have him stand on one leg and then do the reaction time.
Oh, wow.
So now you're training the body to be able to react quickly, all while balanced. So you're not just focusing on one thing. And we see how much faster the time goes up just from that alone. And it's pretty neat to see. And I actually had a fighter where he was able to stand on a exercise ball, like stand on it,
oh, wow.
not on his knees, stand on it and catch a tricolor, like little star. And that would call a color. And while he's standing on the ball, you'd have to catch that color in midair.
Jeez.
So that's as far as I go with it.
That's pretty sweet, though.
Yeah, but eventually I wouldn't mind getting one of those. I forget what they're called, but it's like a suit. If I put it on you and I have you take off, just say you're working on your 40-yard dash, or if you're doing a 100-yard dash, this suit tells you like the initial movement, almost in 3D, like what muscles engaging. And I think stuff like that really does help. I don't want to go old school because I would contradict myself. I do add some of the old school training in, but as far as like just knowing what works is what I like. I'm a big fan of getting out there and just doing it, but I also put in a lot of the newer stuff. Like I have Vertimaxes.
What is that?
A Vertimax is kind of like, I always say it's like the stretch bands on steroids. Okay, so you have all these different straps and you get on a platform and it's resistance. Now, a lot of people like to put every band that's on it on somebody because they think strength is everything, right? Just like most of your high school strength conditioning coaches are like the little short, roly-poly guys that look the same as they did their senior year. And everything is like, just get under the barbell and push up. Max it out. Yeah, max it out. That's like where I don't want that. So I do, with the weights, I'll do like maybe 3 sets of an explosive movement, maybe at 70% of their max. And then they'll go into like a explosive movement, whether it's a knee tuck jump or jump off the knees into a tuck jump, to train the body, get the muscle strong in the areas that they need it, but also where they can move. Because anytime you get under and you isolate the muscle, like 4 sets of 10 on squats, you're actually, it's counterproductive. You're tightening the muscle, you know what I mean? Like if people think that your top NFL player is running a 4.40 because he gets under a squat rack and squats, 400 pounds, they're absolutely nuts. What they don't show, they see the combines, but what they don't show is that they're running at 4 feet of water at an explosive movement, or running stadium steps, but explosive movement, or on a Vertimax, different things like that. Those are what help, but I don't know how we got onto this point.
Well, I was asking like technology and
stuff.
So that's cool.
So yeah, technology is, and again, I know that stuff gets the athlete fast. I do a lot, like my wrestlers, whatever moves they do in wrestling, and I'll ask them, like I got a kid right now ranked number 2 in the country. I'll take that movement and put him on the Vertimax, because that's also what you could do all the same movements in any sport while you're attached to the resistance bands, and I'll have them do those moves on there, different things like that. But yeah, technology, I'm down for it. I got a lot of cool pieces of equipment, but when I think of like technology and the advancements, I really eventually would like to get one of those bodysuits that show every movement. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's kind of cool, and I think that you could do a lot off of that, especially with the strength conditioning. But the only thing is, going back to it, that stuff is expensive.
Right,
you know
right.
what I mean? Like,
right.
And with the amount going out.
That's why you got to visit Kelly Pavlik charitable organization.org, baby, so
exactly.
you can contribute. Because, listen, there's so many people that are like you that feel a sense of they want to be altruistic. They feel a sense that they need to give back, but they might not have the time because they're working 9 to 5 or they're doing their thing or whatever. So here's a way where you can feel like, not like you're going to relieve the burden of some of the guilt because you're not able to volunteer at the St. Vincent de Paul or here or that or the other. You can contribute, and then Kelly's going to teach these guys how to do that stuff. And maybe he can get, I don't know if you're talking about the haptic suit. They have that where you put it on, and like if you're playing a game, especially if it's like a boxing game or whatever, you feel a sensation. Like if you're getting a body blow, that's not the same thing, I don't think. But
no, but that could
using
be
that technology,
too.
it's kind of neat.
But a lot of times, even with that being said, the initial muscle that's engaged, you don't maybe felt in a different spot. Same kind of like when a massage therapist, if you go in and you say your right shoulder hurts and she's working on your left, and you're going, why is she working on my left when I told her it's my right? Well, what's happening on the right might be because of what's happening on the left.
You might be overcompensating.
And the same with that, it still helps, but initial movements, that first initial muscle that, and this is how deep I get, that fires off.
Yeah.
You may not be feeling it until it gets into the more so the type 1, bigger muscle. So, but and again, it's a starting point. So, but I'm always into that. I really am. Like, if you go into other stuff, like I have a shuttle MVP. It's actually used for seniors. It's a leg press, a lay down leg press that has a softer platform. And of course, I took that and was like, I seen it. A therapist putting senior citizens on it, and I was like, So I use it now for my track and basketball players for jumping, right? So I put the weight on at a high resistance on the come down. The push off is light, and it's a softer platform, so it's not a lot of pounding on the knees, and they do real fast, quick, explosive jumps off of the leg press. I got, like I said, the Vertimax, the Flash Pods. I'm into all the cool pieces of equipment that help on fast twitch.
I gotta get over to this gym and check it out. That stuff's cool to me. Mm-hmm. It kind of reminds me of like when Ivan Drago was training and Rocky was going old school, and they had like the light things were going up. And
I'm still obsessed with the big red square that measure the punch
power
force.
Of the punch. Yeah, you don't go down to West Side Bowl and hit that little punch machine. See if you can get like 900s on it.
We could do that.
Yeah.
I actually broke one of those. That's on YouTube too. Yeah, I broke one of those machines. Pretty funny. But it's all cool. So I'm always. That's why I say like 9 o'clock. Me and my son now. I get home and he's my little buddy too. Like we'll either have a movie night or like me and him will watch something. Then he goes upstairs and plays his video games or goes to bed, and that's like my research time. I'm on there because I'm an open book. You never stop learning in anything, and I'm always seeing like what's the new thing out there. I got guys in the area. I got people at my gym that help me, but and they all become like these big trainers now, they think, and it's like, dude, you're kind of doing like what I'm doing. You know what I mean? Like I'm the one that found these pieces of equipment. All the training regimens. So it is fun, and it's fun to see when people do it. People, I had a kid come one time, bring his kids there, and then like after 2 weeks they quit. And then on social media, I seen like him putting all the same stuff that I have up. or like the Vertimax. I did the Joe Rogan podcast, and I was talking about it on Vertimax, on Rogan, about the Vertimax, and next thing I know, I got inboxes on my Instagram from Vertimax, and then like 3 gyms in the area I seen like, oh yeah, we just got the Vertimax, blah 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 blah, and I'm going, So now I go, should I hide it? You know, do I hide when people come with cameras? You know, all the stuff I do. And I did one time. I had a boxing gym come in, so I put a drape over my flash pod system, so nobody knew what it was. You know what I mean? But it's kind of cool too when people take it though, because it's a compliment.
The X factor is you.
Yeah.
Those other people can have the equipment.
You gotta know what you're doing with it.
There you go.
Like I said, the Vertimax. You know, the old school mentality, like everything is like you got to be strong. You know, so they'll put like every band that's on the Vertimax onto the kid. Well, that's not what that's made for. You know, you want just enough resistance where they can still keep form and explode. And you're putting every strap in the gym on top of this kid. You know, it's not doing anything. So knowing what to do with it when you get it is a big part. And that's why I don't get stressed out when people steal the ideas. You know, I'm just kind of like, all right, well, it's a compliment, but you still gotta train them on it. So,
well, some of those things probably prevent injuries too while they're doing. You know, when they're in competition, right? You're training so that you're not only stronger and faster for competition, but so that you're less apt to get injured.
Really good point. Weightlifting, why I still somewhat added in is because if you get certain parts strong, it's a good injury prevention, right? Deadlifts. If anyone is to do a deadlift with me, I prefer straight leg, lightweight. Right, and do that because it strengthens your lower back, all while still stretching out the hamstring and tighten it and making the hamstring strong. Squats for a certain reason, mainly because of hip strength, you know, but I also train the abductors too because it's important to balance the hips out. You know, overtraining one part of the hip will lead to hip injuries, you know, and pain. So yeah, with like deadlift and weights. If I have an athlete do deadlifts, 99% of the time it's straight leg. And if he could deadlift, you know, 275, I only put 135 on.
Yeah.
And just have him straight leg, maybe 20 reps, you know, 15 to 20 reps to kind of strengthen the lower back, you know, especially for football players and stuff like that. So, yeah, there's different things that you could add in.
Let's shift gears a little bit off of training because I want to be respectful of your time, but also I'm curious, you know, especially with the Jake Paul Mike Tyson fight being canceled. That's coming up in a couple of weeks, and now he's fighting Mike Perry. What do you think about that? Has the YouTube boxing culture, has it been a help or a hindrance to the professional, you know, the professional ranks? Do you like it? Do you like the YouTuber? I mean, I don't know. I don't know how I feel about it.
I don't either. That's good. You know, that's the whole thing. Like, I don't knock what Jake Paul's doing. He don't make a mockery of the sport. You know, he does train. He's been doing it for like 5 years, 6 years. When he goes into these fights, he's in shape and he's doing it. He picks the right guys. You know,
sure.
I probably get a lot of MMA fans out there, but I don't care. I train stand-up with a lot of UFC and Bellator guys, but they're horrible with their hands, and rightfully so. I mean, they got to work on grappling, kicking. Their stance is real wide to prevent takedown. But other than that, like, you're better off just getting a guy off the street and putting him in a boxing ring compared to an MMA fighter. And not only does Jake Paul fight those guys, he fights the ones that are overweight and been out as long as me.
Yeah, right.
Look like me. But, yeah, so that does fight. And what makes me mad about that is after he beats him, he goes on and is like, yeah, I should get the title shot. Like, you fought one.
You fought Tommy Fury,
yeah,
bro.
one boxer who.
Come on.
Tommy Fury may be ranked 50th in Ohio.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right.
And you lost to him. So that part makes me mad. As far as him getting paid more than boxers and boxers complaining, like, listen, the dude, you got to know your worth.
Yeah.
The dude's the one putting, 18,000 asses in his seats, right?
Yeah.
And he's getting 200,000 pay-per-views buys. You're not doing that, and that's why he's making more.
Right.
I don't get mad about that. If I was to fight Jake Paul, I'm not going to be like, oh, I should get the
Ding, ding. There's a little idea I just put in my head.
Well, that's already been brought up.
What?
Showtime, before Showtime, this is 3 years ago, they already wanted to make that fight.
Oh, man. Would you do it? Would you consider it?
I did. And Jake Paul backed out of it.
What?
Yeah.
Of course he did.
Exactly.
He don't want that heat.
I wasn't old enough and I wasn't far removed at that time for him to take that fight. And he won't take a fight with someone like that. Again, going back to it, he'll take a fight with an MMA guy, right, who's retired and can't box.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's not a big problem with that, but when you start like saying I should be ranked this, ranked that, and I know that I wouldn't have a problem with him if I was to fight him and he was like, I get more than Kelly, like, because I know that you're going to sell more tickets than me. Why should I make the money?
He's relevant. He's got millions of followers on YouTube. I get it.
But now it's starting to get to a little bit of a point, like even to Mike Tyson. So just say he was fighting Mike Tyson. That's very smart on Jake Paul's end of it, right? Because the people, sports people, really don't know as much as they think they know, and I'm not being mean when I say that, and especially like boxing fans or supposed boxing fans.
Sure.
Jake Paul fights Mike Tyson, and he does okay but loses. That just elevated his stock even more, right?
Yep.
Everybody's like, oh, Jake Paul gave Mike Tyson a tough fight. If Jake Paul goes in and beats Mike Tyson, now he's like king of boxing.
Superhero
he's
status.
Pound for pound.
He beat Mike Tyson.
Yeah, he's the best ever. And if he loses, oh well, you lost to Mike Tyson. What people don't see is that Mike Tyson is a 60-year-old man that smokes weed all the time and sells marijuana, and has a podcast. He's 60 years old.
Yeah.
That'd be like, in all reality, and I know some old head out there would be like, oh, no. That'd be like taking Barry Sanders, and at his age and where he's at now, and saying that he could go run for 300 yards against Cleveland St. Ignatius.
Yeah.
It's not going to happen.
Right.
He's 60 years old.
Right.
Like, Father Time shows up, and Mike Tyson is 60 years old. No, I didn't want to see that fight. And I hate to say this, if I had to bet on it, I probably still would take Mike Tyson.
I would too.
But,
only in the first 4 rounds, though.
Yeah, right?
I think if Jake takes him into the deep waters, if he's trained cardio-wise and he can get there.
Yeah, but, the
guy.
big thing is the skull, the brain, can't take the shots. He's 60 years old.
Yeah.
The last thing to go is power, but your reaction time, speed, all that goes. And you're talking about a 25-year-old kid that's been training for boxing for the last, that we know of, 6 years, and no, if Jake Paul beat him, I'm not thinking Jake Paul's any better, like at least I know, or a lot of big-time boxing people know. But it was a smart move on his part, You
think that fight will happen? You think they'll eventually fight?
Maybe he feels Tyson's still too young and he's going to try to push it back another 2 more years. Until he's 70.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't. It might happen. It's a money maker for both of them. It really is. Like, it's going to be crazy the numbers that would do. But Jake Paul also can still take these type fights. Know he's going to win and probably walk away with 10, 12 million.
Man.
It's not dumb on his part.
Yeah.
It's his hustle,
What about we've got Terence Crawford is going to fight the guy's name. He's a 10-0 fighter. He's only got 10 professional fights.
I can't pronounce it.
Israel Madrimov.
Yeah.
And Bud Crawford's moving up in weight, so he's going from welterweight to super welterweight, which is 154. Yeah. So just below middleweight.
Junior middleweight, depending on the organization. I think certain sanctioning bodies call it super welterweight, and some call it junior middleweight.
Yeah.
But it's the same, 154. Listen, I think Bud Crawford is right now arguably has a big argument for number 1 pound for pound.
I agree with you.
But this could be one of them situations biting off more than you could chew. I can't pronounce his name either, and I'll butcher it. Masterval or whatever.
Israel Madrimov.
Madrimov, yeah. This guy, I've seen him fight a couple times. and just the region he comes from, them fighters are just.
Is he Ukrainian or he's from Kazakhstan or one of those guys?
Yeah, or Northern Croatia, something. Yeah, they could fight, and him being naturally 154. This could be an interesting fight.
Yeah.
I don't see it as like Crawford's going to go in and dominate easily. I don't see it that way. Now, with that being said, I mean, Crawford and the way boxing is today and how advanced these fighters are, Crawford's great at angles, closing a gap, making you miss, making you pay. He's smart. He takes his time. He sets up. But when you get a guy just at that weight, he may not care as much. He may just come in and brute force, kind of back up Crawford and beat him up. We don't know. And I think that makes for a very interesting fight.
Yeah.
It really does.
Well, he and you and I talked about this, before the fight and after. He made Errol Spence look not ordinary, but look. He exposed him. I mean, and there was a lot of people that I don't know how they took Spence, but they took Spence in that fight, and they thought he was gonna. And I don't think Spence really has been the same since the accident. And and almost in that fight, I thought when it was over with, I thought certainly we don't need to see a rematch, but I almost thought, geez, I hope he hangs it up, not for him, but for his health. Not for. I'm sure he's got a couple more fights left in him to make money, but I almost hope he hangs it up for his health. Errol Spence, not Bud Crawford.
That's a good point there. It kind of goes back to where we can get into this rant. Social media. That fight right there proves my point. I think the days of elite athletes and super mega fights and super good fighters, I think them days are gone. I don't think we're ever going to see it again. I think we will see it, but it won't be acknowledged. Perfect example, Spence Crawford. That was a mega fight. No matter which way it unfolded or how. Like, I don't think I picked Crawford in that fight, but I just don't think that was 100% Spence in that fight. And I'll tell you that right now.
Yeah.
That wasn't him. I could tell and I could see it. I even called it in the first round. But I'm not trying to discredit Crawford. I picked Crawford anyways to win that fight. But that was supposed to be a mega fight, and it never was. By the time social media got done with it, it was nothing. And I think we've all seen that. And it will always be like that because everybody got to get on social media and, well, I told you he was overrated, and I told you this, and that wasn't a big fight. The big fight now is Crawford versus Canelo, blah, 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 blah. That fight never got to the point of magnitude that it should have been, And I always think about, like, if social media was around when Mike Tyson got beat by Buster Douglas, would Mike Tyson be who he is today? And I honestly don't think so. I think, especially after the Douglas fight. Can you imagine if Twitter or X or Facebook was around when Mike Tyson got knocked out by Buster Douglas? I already know the whole headlines. Oh, he got knocked out by this big, fat, unknown, heavyweight that nobody. I told you he was overrated. He fought all tomato cans. There's no way he's going to beat this guy. And that would be exactly. We see it with LeBron. I know I'm going to get a lot of hate on this one, right? Michael Jordan, LeBron. LeBron was for years, like everyone was like, oh yeah, even when the Cleveland thing happened, like the local people were mad about that. But LeBron was held up and people soon to forget, he was like this great. The minute he started closing in on Jordan's record, the minute he did, that's when all the hate started spewing on social media. Oh, he ain't as good. And if you sit back and truly look at the numbers, it's mind-blowing how anybody could. Yeah, he played longer than Jordan, but he surpassed Jordan on like 1,200 less field goal attempts. 1,200 less field goal attempts. He surpassed Michael Jordan. He had better field goal percentage. Now, over time, when he took more shots, what happens with percentages? The more, usually your percentage comes down.
Sure.
Right? He still had a higher three-point and field goal percentage. He had more triple doubles, more steals, more blocks. Jordan had, or not steals, Jordan had more steals, but rebounds and blocks. So in that debate, whether, and I'm not going to say who I think is better, right? I know I know who is, just it's pure facts and numbers don't lie. But that's still up for debate for people. But how do you discredit him?
Yeah.
I mean, if he is the all-time leading scorer, he surpassed everybody with less field goal attempts. So where I'm going on this rant, remember I told you we're gonna hit this with the social media thing. The same with boxing, the Crawford Spence fight should have went down as one of the biggest fights, at least in the last 2 decades, and it's not.
Yeah.
Nobody talks about it. And the Usyk Fury fight, heavyweights that everyone's been dying to get, these big time heavyweights. Well, you had it. I understand they're not American, but you know what? It's boxing, and that's the heavyweight division. Nobody really cares because it was, Tyson Fury he should have been fighting Usyk for this, or Usyk should have been fighting. I would like to see Joshua fight Tyson Fury. So I get it. It's the day and age that we're in, but I truly could say that I don't think we're ever going to see a mega star. I don't think we're ever going to see a mega event like that you had with the, Ali versus Frazier or Hagler versus Hearns. I don't think you're going to get those anymore. And you will get them, but it won't be known as that.
Well, I think some of the challenge in that, or the issue in that, is that, back in the day, you had 3 networks, and that was it. And ABC Sports showed boxing. We were talking about, Liam and I were talking about Ray the other day, and it was like, well, yeah, Ray's wide known because there was only 3 networks, and boxing would be on one of them, and he was on ABC Sports a handful of times. Kind of the same thing. I mean, I know those Tyson fights, a lot of them were pay-per-view and that kind of stuff, but people I got a problem with ESPN Plus. I pay for ESPN. Now if I want to see fights, I got to do ESPN Plus, or I want to watch UFC, I got to go to the UFC thing, or DAZN, whatever that thing
Fight
is.
app, or the Fight
Everybody
TV.
has all these fragmented things, and then you've got YouTube boxing, and then you've got kind of the talent pool being diluted with MMA.
Yeah.
Right? So some of those guys that might have been, that are strikers, that might have been boxers, went into MMA because maybe they got a little bit of wrestling, or maybe they did jiu-jitsu, or whatever it is. I feel like it's diluted. So I agree with you. I don't know if we'll ever see.
Yeah, you just won't, because even with all those, and I get that, I agree with you. I mean, people get rid of cable because the price, how expensive I guess it got, and next thing you know, they're paying more than what they were for cable by getting all these different apps. If they like sports and also movies, they got HBO Max, this Paramount. Oh shoot, I got to get Fight app.
Hulu,
I got to get the Zone.
Right, yeah,
YouTube
right.
TV. And next thing you know, 10, 15, $9.99, 20, you're up where you were with regular cable. But yeah, even with that being said, though, these fights are still being made.
That, to your point, that Bud Crawford Spence fight.
Yeah,
I've probably watched it 6 times now. It's a classic. I mean, it's a great, and he puts on a real kind of clinic against these are the 2 top guys in the sport, pound for pound. And nobody really, and I would ask people hey, did you see the fight this week? Oh, who fought? Now, 20 or 30 years ago, it's less than, it's more than 20 now, probably 30 years ago, 35 years ago. What I can remember is one of the last big fights was Hagler-Leonard, right?
Yeah.
And we went and watched that, and everybody, and maybe it's because, the small circle of people, but I feel like everybody that weren't even people that weren't a boxing aficionados were who's gonna win the Leonard Hagler fight? Or when the fight was over with that next weekend, or that next week in school, hey, did you guys catch the fight? And everybody knew about it, even if you didn't. But now it's who's Bud Crawford? Who's Errol Spence? What the fuck? These guys are amazing athletes.
Well, again, let's just real fast go back over that.
Yeah.
Kinda, think about it like this. Manny Pacquiao, Floyd Mayweather.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
That fight's not a mega fight today. If
No.
you ask somebody, was that a mega fight? No. Floyd Mayweather got Pacquiao when he was old and
yeah.
blah, blah, blah. And going back to it, the knowledge, Manny Pacquiao was 2 years older than Floyd. So how did he get him when he's old?
Right.
And Manny Pacquiao went on to win a world title and rattle off like 5 more wins.
Yeah.
Right? But anything to discredit or to show to people that you know what you're talking about, people go and say stuff like that, right? Oh, well, it was a washed-up Pacquiao. Dude,
Yeah. No.
this guy is younger than Pacquiao by 2 years, and Pacquiao went on to win. But let's use Michael Jordan. Let's just say social media was around, how it is for LeBron, but Michael Jordan was getting ready to get to move into the number 5 all-time scorer. If social media was around, you would have had, well, basketball ain't play like it was when Oscar Robertson or Dr. J was
Right.
in the league.
Right.
I asked this, and I want people being dead serious. Do you think Michael Jordan would be who he is today, being 5th? If LeBron is not the best, and I've seen many people say that he's not even top 10, right?
That's crazy.
And
Talk.
this is the all-time lead. Like right now, the only argument for Michael Jordan would be if he was number 1 all-time is that he's number 1 all-time, right? But now it's, well, because LeBron played 20 years. They still forget that LeBron did it with 1,200 less shots. But just think if Michael Jordan was and social media was around, how many people, the old heads, the 40, 50, 60-year-olds, when Michael Jordan was in his prime, getting ready to get number 5, and how many of them would have said, oh, well, he ain't Oscar Robertson, he ain't Dr. J, these were real basketball. This league today, he's not as good as them.
Right.
And so I think that he would have been, his legacy would have been tarnished a little bit, just like LeBron, and that goes back into the fights. I just brought up Manny Pacquiao, Floyd Mayweather, Terence Crawford, Earl Spence. I'm huge on this. I truly believe that that's why those weren't mega fights. How in the heck is the all-time leading sales and pay-per-view sales fighter Floyd Mayweather and Manny Pacquiao, who at the time was like 2nd all-time, how is that not a mega fight? And the numbers broke even MMA, the top MMA numbers, okay? Even broke, I believe, Conor McGregor and Floyd Mayweather. How is that not a fight that's talked about as one of the all-time great fights? I could tell you why.
Because of the age?
No.
Or because social media marginalized
social
it?
media.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And when I say this, I'm not trying to be mean. I'm just being dead honest. Like, it's frustrating as a former athlete. And I could say that I was a guy who came up I started most of my career in the non-social media days.
Yeah.
I think maybe MySpace was floating around. But, and then towards the end, social media was gone. But I could say that as a fan and a former athlete, people could be mad all they want, but tell me where I was wrong on this. I think sports is going to ruin, or social media is going to ruin. Everybody's still going to watch sports, no matter if social media is there or not. People love it, right? It gives people to go on Monday mornings, something to talk about, weekends that people gather. Sports is always going to be huge. But I think the day and age of keeping a poster because it was Terence Crawford versus Spence and framing it,
Yeah.
it ain't going to have the same meaning as framing Ali Frazier.
Yeah.
Or the Michael Jordan poster slam dunk in a ball. LeBron, you ain't going to see a LeBron one like that, right? I hate to say it, but I think we've already kind of seen it, and some of us don't want to admit to it, but we've seen it in sports.
Well, it's probably diluted too, but it's also now all these guys have an immediate platform to communicate with their fans and with others. So you have now athletes that are on Twitter and everyone's like, oh, what did he say on Twitter? Or what's I'm just having like a brain fart now. The girl, Caitlin Clark.
Yeah.
Right. So everybody's got an opinion on Caitlin Clark and what's Angel Reese, so, and then people want to kind of like argue about who's better and everybody has an opinion, but the athletes can also kind of get out to their fans, where back in the day, you didn't know what Mike Tyson was thinking, or you didn't know what Kelly Pavlik was thinking, but you definitely know what what's the kid that just fought? They just said he's on PEDs. He beat
Ryan Garcia because he has 2 million Instagram.
He's out there and saying, oh, I did this, I did that, and you know, it kind of, I'll steal your word, like tarnishes them a little bit, because you know, you didn't know what Michael Jordan was thinking or what Mike Tyson was doing. Like, we probably would have maybe expected the Buster Douglas defeat had there been social media, because there probably would have been pictures or video of him in Japan doing blow and hanging out with hookers.
But we don't know that he was for sure. You know what
right,
I mean?
yeah, right.
That's the whole point.
Right. Well, he said he was. I mean, I think he said he was.
Like,
right?
Fighters back then there was always an excuse for like why a guy lost, right? And everybody lives off it.
Yeah.
But today, that's another one. Like, let's use Lomachenko against Teofimo Lopez.
Yeah.
Lomachenko literally, after the fight, is in the hospital with a bandage around his shoulder for shoulder surgery, and people are going, "Oh, he's making excuses."
Right.
I wouldn't have done that. You know, I wouldn't have done that. He's making excuses. Oh, but we're going to take word that, you know, Mike Tyson only lost because he was out with, you know, partying. Like, give me a break. You know what I mean? And again, with Caitlin Clark, good point you brought up there. That was a milestone, what she did, what she accomplished.
For any athlete.
Yes, it was huge.
Male or female, yeah.
How many people were really walking around on the streets or at the local pubs or at the coffee shop going, wow, that was amazing. Can you believe that she just broke that record? I haven't heard about it from one person besides when they bring up about the controversy and the only reason why she's getting, you know, popular or this or that on social media, you see it. I don't see anybody talking about what she did at Iowa.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
well, I think they talked about it a lot in the lead up.
A little bit, a little bit, but
yeah.
I mean, again, it was a big thing, you know, and now it is kind of tarnished because of, well, the only reason she's here and this and that, and I think it just and that again goes back to, you know, people their voices want to be heard, you know, and when I did my podcast, again, kind of contradicting myself a little bit here. Social media was great, right?
Yeah,
for that. Because
good promotion,
but because of this reason, right? Just like what I'm talking about now, why I think it's bad for sports. There is this you gave society this opportunity, right? Before I even get into that, when you were younger and you used to listen to just say 98.9 or Hot 101, and you wanted to hear a song or somebody to call in, and you get on that phone and you're trying to call in for how long, and you couldn't get through. Or if you listen to a radio show and you wanted to get your opinion out, right? But you couldn't get through. Well, now with social media, everybody has a chance for their voice, so they think, to be heard.
Yeah.
And like when I got my podcast, the format we kind of started off, and it was like us with our heads on our phone. We were sitting there like this. And people were, and you see us talking with our heads down, and I got it. You know, if you first like looked into it, you're going, "What is this? What's going on here?" But then after you started getting used to it, the viewers got used to seeing it like that, and they loved it because whatever we were talking about, the whole show revolved around us responding to the comments.
Yeah, live.
Right? Yeah, live. We even had Bud Crawford on. We had Mikey Garcia. We had these big time pound for pound fighters, and we actually lost, our ratings went down, we lost viewers when we had those people on because they didn't have a chance for their voice to be heard. They didn't care about who was on talking. They were used to being able to text us what they want to tell us and us respond back to them and give them that satisfaction, and they loved it, right? And now in this society, that's what social media is. That's everybody's voices to be heard.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Or seen. And that's all they care about. And as long as they could get it out there, like I said, Caitlin Clark, Terence Crawford, big fights, this, that. And I go back, and I'm not lying when I say, just think if Tyson, social media was around, because that's exactly what would have happened. It would have been the same thing. And your T-shirt like that wouldn't have been as huge as it is today.
Yeah.
The nostalgia factor plays in. People have that, and it's crazy. And I'm glad we kind of brought it up, because it's something I look at all the time, and I feel kind of bad too, because I see the future. Like, yeah, I'm going to be excited for big fights. I think a lot of people are. But them big fights, I think the day and age of like these mega fights are over. I think the mega superstar, like 200 years from now, these athletes may be able to jump 30 feet in the air. They're never going to be as good as Michael Jordan. You know what I mean?
Right.
They could probably, if they shoot half quarters and half court 3 points, they move the 3-point line back to half court, and the guy goes 20 for 21 in the game. Oh, well, they didn't have 3-point lines when Michael Jordan played, or Michael Jordan didn't use the 3-point line. There's always going to be, and it's going to be on social media, and and I think the day and age of that next great is unfortunately done.
Well, and everybody wants to be right, and everybody wants instant gratification.
Yeah.
So, oh, no, I got an opinion on this. I got to get it out.
Even if they don't agree with it, but if they know that it's going to get attention to their comment, they're going to say it.
Yeah.
Want to be debt-free faster, save money in taxes and insurance, and retire with more wealth? Call Zach Byler of Prosperity Partners Financial Solutions today for full-service financial advisory. 330-219-5225. If you're looking to buy new or sell your current home or commercial property in Northeast Ohio or Northwestern Pennsylvania, look no further than Brokers Realty at brokerssold.com. Top Shelf Bar, 450 wines on hand, and your choice of local craft beers, including Modern Methods Brewery Double IPA, now available at the Station Square Restaurant.
Well, you see it with, I'm not going to get into that, but you see it with, like, now we're getting close to the election, and now everyone's starting to get real antsy, like we're kicking the hornet's nest. Yeah, and everyone's got an opinion, and everyone wants to argue and be right. I think it's important to have discussions, but I don't necessarily need to be right. People are like, oh, I'm not going to talk to that person because they're a Republican or they're a Democrat. Well, I mean, we probably should all have that conversation, because how are we going to move forward as a country or make it better as a country? You notice, and I said I wasn't going to talk politics. You notice how neither one of these presidential candidates, they're talking about each other, but they're not talking about term limits. They're not talking about dark money. They're not talking about getting PAC money out or big lobbying out of, big pharma. There's all these intricate things that happen that we do as consumers that we don't know about, because it's not talked about, because we're too busy talking about waving the flag or being patriotic or doing whatever it is. Where they get a golf handicap, instead of talking about, hey, maybe we should change some of these FDA regulations so that they can take the red dye number 40, or they can take some of these contaminants out of our food. They always talk about the Europeans have a better...
Well, I call that greed.
Greed, right.
Right? That's greed.
Yeah.
That's most supermarkets, and it's not all their fault, because the distributors or wherever they're getting it from, that is greed. Most European countries still, they could eat red meat and this and that and plants and, be fine. But here in the United States, the faster you can move it out, the more you keep getting in. So let's put this on it. Let's put this in this food. Let's get this to grow faster.
Yeah, and as long as we keep buying it, they're going to keep putting it on the shelves.
Big pharma. I think about that. How many cures are sitting out there right now? I know of one that would help tremendously. How many cures and or anything's out there to for longevity and quality that big pharma is still sitting on, because they're trying to figure out just how they could
monetize it,
capitalize off of this.
Sure.
And how could we monetize it that where we still make, there's so many things, and that's been that way since probably beginning of time, right? I agree with you. I mean, politics, I think there wasn't a debate. There was things that were brought up. Some of them we couldn't understand. Some of it it was a struggle. I'm not going to lie, but the thing comes down. I always say this, and people get mad at me. I don't care. Like, it sounds selfish. I do care, but everybody sometimes looks out for themselves. As long as the economy and the market, I think, for pretty much all of our society, whoever could do the best job for that, in my opinion, is, first of all, that's a big plus, right?
Sure.
People need to work.
Yeah.
You
need to provide for your families, yeah.
Yeah, but then secondly, our safety, this, that. I agree, and unfortunately, I think whoever it don't come down to who's exactly in office, right? Joe Biden, I'm sure there's a lot of things that his administration wants to do that they may want to pass, but it gets shut down in House, Senate. Same with Trump. I'm sure there's a lot of things. I remember when he was president, there was a lot of things that got shut down on him. Shot down.
Sure.
But it's hard. Politics. Yeah, that's man. I see people on social media like just wanting to go after their throats, the jugular and it's like, well, what makes you feel that you're so right? Because there's, for any, I consider, and I'm not a lawmaker. I have never been in the field. I've never been a politician. I don't know one thing about it, right? But I could honestly, from the sidelines, answer a question from a Democrat or find one way to say he's wrong, and I could do the same with a Republican, So like, how is yours better than, the other person's? But it's the way it's been. Democrats, Republicans, left, right. The argument's crazy, and now with social media, I think that has made the tension even higher. I mean,
yeah.
I go back even, like, I remember before the social media was huge, again, with Tom, our buddy from MySpace. That was his name, right? Remember the guy who was standing like this? I think it was Tom, the owner of MySpace.
Oh, yeah. I was never on MySpace.
Okay, but but even like the early 2000s, you had the 9/11 that brought everybody together.
Yep.
Right? But even before that Michael Moore was coming out, writing book, like the whole conspiracy theory to Bush in office.
Yeah.
But it still wasn't like it is today. The tension wasn't as bad. It wasn't as strong because it wasn't 300 million people on social media riling everyone up.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
There wasn't, and I think that just causes a lot of tension on this now. And you see a lot of it out there. You see the rallies, protests, this, that, and it's crazy, man. And I do, and I even go to that. Big part of it is because of the social media.
Yeah. Well, there's a book I recently read. It's called The End. What's it called? The End of Racism in Politics. An Argument for a Colorblind Society. I've talked about it on another podcast. The guy's a excellent writer. And he pinpoints, and I apologize for not being able to remember his name, Coleman Hughes. It's a Coleman Hughes book. Came out last year. He's been on a bunch of different podcasts and shows, but he pinpoints kind of why the issue of racism has gotten so out of hand because it's social media. And to kind of go back to like Mike Tyson, right? People got so comfortable on social media because there wasn't someone standing across from like to punch him in the face. I could be talking to someone and be like, oh, you're a fucking loser. You I looked at your social profile and I can call you a name because you're overweight. Look at this fact. Like I can say that to this person because he's in Kansas or he's in New York or he's somewhere,
Yeah.
You wouldn't dare say that. Like I could call Kelly Pavlik, oh, he doesn't know shit. Look at him. He's, Kelly, he's lifting weights now. Hey, I'm not across from him in the bar. You wouldn't say that to Kelly Pavlik if he was standing in front of you.
Exactly.
Right? So we got too comfortable, like, being able to talk shit about people or
anonymity.
Yeah, through anonymity and a lack of respect. Like, let's just respect each other. We don't have to agree, but we could still respect each other in our disagreement.
And it's even funny. That's another one. Like, it's just really crazy. We were talking earlier. There's most of these people on social media almost have like two characters. You know what I mean? Like,
oh yeah,
you know them personally, and then they say this and say that, or somebody says, "Well, how do you know?" And this person goes, "Well, because I took 4 years of this class." And and I'm going, "No, you didn't. Like, I know you. I know you since we were kids. Where the hell are you coming up with this?"
Yeah.
So like. It makes you think like how much of the other BS is out there, And, yeah, it's frustrating. There's a lot on that, and then on YouTube at night when I'm scrolling through, like I said, I do my a couple what do you call them like social media influencers, like like they do for strength conditioning. So I'm following them, and then however it works on YouTube, sometimes you get certain things on there that pop up, and and you watch them, and it's just some of them are interesting. It's always good to take views from here because, like I said, that's kind of where I'm at. But it's hard, you put stuff out there, and you may get some. Just say you're a real big political guy, right? I think you are.
I am.
Big,
Yeah.
And say like you got this thing that happened, and you're like, I'm gonna go on social media. There's no way anyone can argue with me on this one. Like, this is so dead on, and you put that up, and the next thing you know, like it's like, I'm like, oh, you don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
And next thing you know, this has happened. Next thing you know, like this happened with like boxing, right? On an argument. Next thing you know, like that whole thing that you were so excited to put up because you were going to set everyone straight, right? And I've done this too, so I'm not saying.
Yeah, I know.
Next thing you know, like it's 11 o'clock at night, and you got stuff to do in the morning, but you're like your blood pressure is through the roof. You ain't going to bed anytime soon because like 300 comments later, you're still in an argument with someone and getting your point across, and that's what happens.
Yeah.
And then you're just like, oh, and then it's like, well, was it really worth it at that point?
Hell
like,
no.
Did you get anything out? And now what happened is you got a couple gray hairs, you're irritated as hell, and you can't sleep.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's and I have backed away from social media, not completely because I have to stay out there with the boxing.
It's part of your brand and part of your business.
Strength conditioning, and I think it's great for things like that. I really do.
Me too.
But and again, it's going to be, this is the new norm. Like, social media is around, but I just think there's a lot of things that kind of won't be the same because of it, because everyone knows everything. I've never, boxing. You argue with people and they know I'm a former world champ. They're actually calling me champ in the argument with me, like on something that I truly do know is 100% fact. Oh, champ, I don't know, man, blah, blah, blah. Like, I don't think you're right. And I'm not making that up. And and you get, like, that's frustrating. Or like I always say, well, just because, I've been at gyms, I've watched boxing. I've been watching boxing for 30 years. Well, wouldn't that make every single official at USA Boxing or that's judging a pro fight, wouldn't that make them the world's greatest trainer? Because they watch boxing all the time, right?
Yeah.
That's all they do.
You're a fan, man.
Yeah, you're
I'm
a fan. Yeah, it don't mean you know what you're watching,
right?
Like to that extent, right? Same as football. I don't care how many games you watch. Why are you, if you get kudos for watching all these games, how come you're not on the sidelines making $15 million a year?
Right.
So, but people they have a hard time understanding that. I'm not saying you don't have your opinions. Like,
sure.
I think, like, if you think a team sucks, okay, that's your opinion to say it. But when you start getting into the nitty gritty personal and running the athletes down or coaches and this and that, then there's a little, it gets a little irritating. But, that's what you run into.
Well, the challenge really is, because we didn't grow up with it, so we have a little bit of a removal from it. We weren't under the microscope as much. Our kids, it's a different story, right?
Yeah.
Now you have girls that are like, oh, I'm not pretty enough, or I'm not this or that, or boys that are, oh, look at him. He, you got it maybe in the schoolyard, I can remember wearing pants that were too short for me, and they're like, what's up, high waters, and I'm like, oh, yeah, I got. But now on social media, they can just gang pile on people, and it's.
The one area of concern, and that's a good point you brought up, that I have been involved with, and I wish I could find a way, and somehow I'm going to through my charity. That's a good point you brought up, but cyberbullying, like back in the day, if you got picked on, like when we were younger, it all stayed in your school.
Yep.
And it may have been a kid below, a grade below, or in your grade, or even a grade above.
Mm-hmm.
And you had to worry about like going out in the parking lot, or or just them picking on you. As we're today, you're getting picked on. You may have a kid from a school in a county across from you jumping on there, and you got 5 or 6 different high schools of kids now just like all joining in on the bullying and picking on you. And that's a lot. And then it's getting spread and it's getting shared and it's getting, the next day everyone in the school's talking about it. Cyberbullying is actually a lot worse than bullying was never good in the first place, but it's it's to another level now. You know, you go to the Canfield Fair and you're like, oh, I hope I don't see so-and-so from my school here. Well, you ain't got now. You got to worry about. You just hope that you don't see 30 kids that were picking on you,
right?
You know, from all over the area. So yeah, cyberbullying. That's something that I think, I don't know how, but there has to be a way to kind of minimize that as much as possible, because it is in girls, unfortunately, taking lives. You know, there's just a lot of things, and then through my counseling program that I want to run, I know it's not big out there right now, and I you know, this was kind of brought up, but they have social media addiction.
Yeah, right.
And I want to add that into one of the things for counseling, because that is a big part. And even kids that get picked on, and personally, like to us who never had it, if you're getting picked on social media, you'd probably be like, I'm not going on there, right? But some of these kids, that's all they know.
They can't stop.
Right? They can't stop, so they're back on, and
it's just like you're arguing with somebody at 11 o'clock at night. You know, just like you were saying.
Exactly.
You're on there like, oh, let me just say this one last thing.
Exactly.
And then they say the last thing. And
and then you wake up the next morning and you go, let me see what that son of a bee said, right. You know. But I think there should be a way for help for kids that, you know, parents would know if their kid is constantly on social media. I worry when, like, my son's always on, but he also is so active. So I don't think it's to that point, you know.
Yeah.
But I think it's, especially since 2020, since COVID and quarantine, you know, I think the numbers really shot up.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's a big thing. And I think if we could somewhat minimize that, or even just bring down a little bit, like show kids like, hey, there is an outside world.
Well, I think what you're doing with your charitable organization and training these kids, they're learning, you're keeping them active, right? And they're getting away from that oxytocin or that endorphin release that they might have through social media, through somebody liking their post. They're getting it in a physical environment, and you're teaching them self-control and self-respect, especially in a not that other sports don't do that, but I think especially in like a combat sport. You know, in this book, for those that are not watching, Kelly the Ghost Pavlik, the Pride of Youngstown book, you know, part of the first couple chapters talk about how, you know, you'd go to these fights in Akron or Cleveland, and they're like, what's this skinny white boy gonna do? They were like talking shit about you or whatever. Yeah. But you, once those hands started flying, there was a different level of respect, and you obviously have restraint because you weren't out like fighting in the streets or whatever. Yeah. Teaching those kids that particular skill set maybe allows them to have the confidence to be able to say, hey, you know what? I'm not going to worry about what some asshole said on social media that I don't even know. It's from another county or city or state. And so then they can kind of have that confidence and that self-worth and that self-reliance carry on with them later into their life. You're doing that now. You're making a difference now by training these kids who otherwise maybe wouldn't do it.
Or these big athletes, you know, like another one, like who really does care? If people are saying mean stuff like, these kids got to know, like, who really cares, though, to that extent? You know, maybe that'll help them feel better. You know, LeBron, let's go back to LeBron. And when I say this, LeBron's by far from my favorite NBA player, too. So when I say this, I have a heart, like, I actually like Michael Jordan better than as a player than James, but I call Bluebird blue, right? You know, like, I think James is better. But you know, LeBron right now, look at all the stuff. I mean, people, they even got memes up like Delonte West is like the father-son, the first father-son, you know. Yeah. There's like harsh things on LeBron. When I say that, you know, it's beyond like, oh, he ain't better than Michael Jordan.
Right.
It's beyond that.
They take it real personal.
So if that was the end of the world, right, for LeBron, but then it's not, because, look, when he goes and plays basketball, the arena still sold out. When you see him on commercials, people are still calling him to do commercials. You know, he's still making buku money a year, and you still have those people out there wearing his jerseys. Yeah. So when I say that, it goes for not a lot of times. Don't get caught up in it. You know, no one does care to that extent. If people are talking about you, you're doing something that they're mad about, right? For the most part.
Yeah.
So even with, and I guess maybe if somewhere along the line you could tie that in with the bullying, so kids don't get too upset, about. I mean, my God, even me, like if I really held everything that was said about me, dude, I probably wouldn't be here right now.
Yeah.
It's but it's crazy, and you would think that these kids, since they came up with it, they know, but I guess maybe that is their life. That's like their second world, society.
Well, I think when they're young like that too, unless they're taught, here's what you're, don't worry about this. This is what, and if they have a mentor, or someone that they look up to, whether it be their dad or granddad or a professional athlete or whatever it is, the Nobel Prize winner of the science award, whatever your lane is, they're looking up to that and see like, oh, that person went through trials and tribulations and came out on the other side. I can do the same thing. Or to have someone just talk to them to say, hey, that world doesn't really matter the way that you think it matters. It doesn't have the importance the way that you think it has importance.
Yep. I agree.
I just think that what you're doing with your organization and with your gyms and what others do as well. I mean, and part of the reason, like when you bring up LeBron, people are talking smack on LeBron, but then a lot of times they won't factor in, hey, you know what? LeBron spent a lot of money in his hometown and I know it wasn't necessarily what was deemed successful, okay, whatever it was, but he put his money where his mouth was. He gave back to the community he was in. Yep. And so you can hate him on all you want for being a basketball player. They call him, they get nicknames for him, LeBum, LaFlop, right? And all this other shit. And it's like, hey, man, he's an NBA player. You're sitting in your couch, okay? You were eighth man off the bench on your high school team, and you're going to talk shit about this guy that he's not a tough guy or tough player. And he put his money as his mouth was. You don't even donate $5 at your church, on Sunday,
dude.
So
and I'm going to tell you a funny story about that real quick.
Yeah.
And I'm not putting, and I got to watch because everything I do say sometimes people hold on to. I'm not picking on anyone's profession, man. Like hustle's hustle, work is work, and I respect all of it, right? But I had this guy come over and fix my washer was down, and I was like, we just bought the washer, but the warranty was just up, so like wasn't getting a new one. So I called the guy, and he's over, and of course, we're talking sports and this and that, and it was, oh man, yeah, Bernie Kosar, I went to school with him, and this guy, we don't even know how he made it to the Cleveland Browns. And I did. I usually don't do this, and I forgot it. I couldn't help it. I was like, well, he also did make it to the Miami Hurricanes, like pretty big.
Yeah,
and
program.
Yeah, like you didn't get lucky and wake up after he graduated high school and like went to the Browns. But yeah, I was, and he's like, yeah, we used to always sit around and just say, how the hell is this guy playing in the NFL? And I'm going, he's like, I was super good, blah, blah, blah. And he's going on. I'm just sitting there, and I'm looking at him. This guy's sitting on his knees with his head underneath the washer. I'm going, yeah, you're fixing my washer, dude. And Bernie Kosar is
Hall of Famer.
A Hall of Famer, you know what I mean? So, like, you just want to say stuff like that, like, you probably, I felt like I was like, what college did you go to?
Yeah.
Like, if you were that good,
right.
Maybe if you didn't make it to the NFL, like, did you play for, the Big Ten? Did you play for the SEC? Like, who did you play for in college?
Yeah.
But, and he didn't probably even go to college. He probably didn't even play for Till.
He was sitting at the bar on Sunday watching the game, talking shit on somebody.
And that's, dude, it's just crazy how many people, like, yeah, blah, 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 this and that. And I'm going, I'm a person, like, I'll talk to anybody, and I respect and I listen. But if you're going to feed me, like, an earful of, like, all this stuff, like, I got to see something. I'm a accolades guy. Like, you show me something, I want to be, like, especially this day and age, like, okay, if I could go on Google and I put your name in,
right,
it's going to come up. Because there was sometimes, like, oh, yeah, well, they didn't put it. I was like, no, that's not how it works. If you did something, even from back in 1943, chances are, there's a good chance you're going to find it on, Google. So yeah, that's funny. Just I couldn't believe it that day when he was like running down Bernie. I'm like, geez, I wonder what he's going to say about me when he leaves my house.
Well, yeah, yeah. He wouldn't say it there though.
No, he wouldn't tell me that.
Well, let's move into the future. Tell me about August 2nd, and tell me about what that looks like. I know the fights start at 5:30. You got with Kenny Hyderis from Sunrise Entertainment, and you're kind of co-promoting it. Just give us a rundown, because we got a little sidetracked. I want to make sure we shine enough light on this amateur boxing.
And I appreciate it. Yes, so Kenny Hyderis, we're doing it. We teamed up. Kenny's big here in Trumbull County, and he puts on amazing events. And so we got fights August 2nd. Weigh-ins are at 5 for the fighters. The gates open at 6 o'clock.
Weigh-ins on the same day?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Amies,
yeah.
Gotcha.
And the door gates, open at 6, and the fights start at 7 o'clock.
Okay.
And it's going to be some talented fighters. I got my girl fighter, Zion Hensley, ranked number 1 in the country.
Yeah.
She's going to be fighting on that. I got a handful of kids from my gym, Levi Williams and Leon Shaw, Jose Higueri. I'm going to butcher his last name. Him and his brother are going to be fighting on there. We're looking to get a couple Warren fighters on there. Actually working on right now getting a talented team in from Buckhead, Atlanta, Georgia, coming in. So it's going to be a really fun night.
That's awesome.
Kenny puts on tremendous shows there at the Amp, and I know people in Trumbull County and Warren, love it. And so we were kind of like, he was like, let's mix it up a little bit and put the fight on there too. Give them something to watch, something different than concerts, and it's pretty exciting. I think it's going to be pretty cool. The only thing we got to worry about,
the weather,
Northeast Ohio, is what you're going to get weather-wise.
Tell me about Zion real quick. She's 14 now? Is she 14?
Yeah, she'll be 15, I believe, in September.
And she's the number 1 rated amateur female fighter in her weight class in the United States.
Yes.
She's from right outside of Youngstown? She's
Western
not from,
Reserve. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Is she the main event?
Yes.
She's the main event.
Yeah, she'll be the main event. She sells a lot of tickets, and, we'll put her there. Great fighter. Obviously I always say this as being a trainer. We got a lot to work on, especially as she is getting older and stepping up. But just her natural ability, the girl could fight. Even in track, what she does in track at Western Reserve in the 8th grade, she's beating state seniors.
Oh, wow.
Like the top girls in the state that are seniors in high school. Her numbers are up there with them in top 3. Just a phenomenal athlete, great kid. She works hard. She, even making weight, she kind of does her own thing. Her dad, Jason's a big help. Obviously
he was her trainer for a long time, right? Or
I kind of overseen. He was a big father part of it though. Like she was with Jack, Rocky. I think Tommy Cordell for a little bit, and then I did all the strength conditioning since she started. Jason did, but he helped. He would take her to tournaments. It was hard for me to get away, especially when I didn't have the boxing gym, and it still is hard. The one thing they're going to all my fighters will realize is that I'll make it to these tournaments. I'm not going to be able to stay a whole week though, especially if I'm entering them in 3 tournaments a year. That's almost a whole month. With everything going on, there's just no way. So my job right now also is finding someone with enough boxing knowledge that could go down with these fighters to these tournaments. But Jason does that with Zion, and then there's a guy out of Cleveland, Coach Rob. He's been a lot of help as well, down there in the tournaments. But yeah, so her dad pretty much, we consider him a trainer, but he's there with her, and yeah, she could fight. I mean, 5 national tournaments now, championships. Female boxing, there's not as many girls.
Sure.
But she's still out there beating all the ones that are in front of her.
Is she Olympic caliber talent? I mean, is that in the talks?
As of right now, yes.
Wow.
Being around sports all the years, I don't like to jump to conclusions.
Sure.
I'm just very, especially in boxing. I'll be around the bush on any other topic, but boxing, I'm very transparent and, straightforward. It's a little early to be talking about Olympics with her. We see a lot of kids that just become superstars early, and when they get to that next level, even in the amateurs, you never hear from them again. Actually, more so than not has been the case.
Yeah.
There's been, I could go over probably right now 30 fighters that were junior Olympic superstars and never heard from them in the open division. But with Z, why I feel a little different and definitely more excited about it is because I could just see the drive. I could see the natural ability that she has, just in other sports alone, let alone boxing. So I think Z will be fine in that part of it, but you want to keep the fighters grounded as much as possible too. Z has had a lot of success, and I think she's been out there at a young age, popularity-wise and on social media, and I think she's done a great job as well as, keeping that to a minimum and not being arrogant or cocky. Believe me, with all her accolades right now, she could walk around with that chest out all day long. She doesn't. So we'll keep her as grounded as much as possible till we see exactly how everything's going to pan out in the open division. Our goal right now is keep doing what we're doing, getting better, working on things that we desperately need to work on, and get that all right and fix it, and tournament by tournament.
Just win the next fight.
Yep, that's it.
Tickets, you can buy tickets online. Can you buy tickets at the event, or how's that work?
Yes, you could buy them. You could buy them at the gate. You could buy them. I'm going to have a handful of tickets and the table tickets at MiGym in Boardman, Ohio, and then the Sunrise. And you could
buy tickets to Sunrise.
Yeah, absolutely.
So if you're listening from Warren, you go down to Kenny at the Sunrise Inn on East Market Street, and you can pick up tickets there. I really want to. I'm definitely coming to that. I really want to see her fight. I've seen highlights, but through social media, there's a benefit sometimes to. We ran it down a little bit, but I want to see her fight live. I think that's pretty awesome. That's
the one thing I want to bring up. So yeah, we did run it down. I do kind of. We weren't.
No, we were honest about it. Yeah.
We weren't running it down. Yeah. We were just bringing attention to things. But yeah, it does have its place too. Social media is big. It's big for small business owners. Anyone, athletes. Yep. It is big for them still if they're looking to get out there.
I think it's interesting because I'll send my son. I'll find videos online of he's a soccer player, and so even though his dad can show him. Right, he doesn't always listen. I'll find videos online and I'll just send him the videos. Because think about it, when we were kids, if you wanted to learn about boxing, you could watch old fights on VHS, or catch fights. But to have somebody train you, to give knowledge to you, there wasn't really a lot there. Maybe you could get a book at the library. Mm-hmm. You could go somewhere to have someone physically train you. Now these kids can go on YouTube or they can go on other places and learn some of this stuff on their own.
I tell a lot of fighters, go back. I'll give them, I haven't done it in the last month, but usually every week was all right, this week I want you guys to watch, Oscar De La Hoya versus Felix Trinidad.
Yeah.
Next week, pull up Hagler versus Hearns. Yeah. I do that a lot. So real quick. They could also, I just want to make sure I got it right. They can get it at www.riverrockattheamp.com. So
you can buy tickets to that.
Buy tickets, yes, on there. Or they could get them at the Sunrise Inn. And then I'll be having tickets for the Mahoney County people. Warren, but I would say Mahoney County because if you're...
Get on over here, Mahoney County and Columbiana and Western Pennsylvania. Come on over.
Warren. Yeah. No, but I have them at my gym too, so that way people locally there can pick them up.
On McClurg and Market Street.
Yep. 8381 Suite 3 Market Street.
And Kelly Pavlik Charitable Organization.org. Go on there, check it out, and listen... If you like what he's saying, and I hope you like what he's saying because I like what he's saying, make a contribution. You don't have to, sometimes we don't have the time to show up and do the volunteer stuff or whatever. Make a contribution so that some of these 160 plus kids that he's got can continue to train, they can continue to build self-esteem and self-worth through athletics and strength train for not only boxing but some of their other sports as well. Boxing, this has always been a boxing area. It seems like in the last couple of years, between Jack having fights and you having fights and Danny Rosenberger having some fights, I think Danny's having fights the week after yours at the music hall. Real quick, I want to congratulate you. I saw Tito Brown on TV recently. They're doing a Walk of Fame, the Youngstown Walk of Fame, and all five, you and Ray and Harry Roro and Greg Richardson and Jeff Lampkin are all going to be honored as the five champions from Youngstown.
I think that's pretty cool. I didn't really know anything of it. Actually, my brother-in-law was like, "Hey, man, this is pretty cool." And I'm like, "Wait, what is that?" And I read it, So that is pretty cool. I think not just for me. I think for the fans, like what Youngstown produced. If you really, it's pretty amazing. These are all Youngstown born. Like it's not like Philadelphia or the Kronk Gym where a lot of their champions came from other places. Like this was hometown people that a lot of them trained there. And to put five out, and especially in that short period of time, in the late 80s, early 80s, I was the little odd one that came, 20-some years later. But, that's just pretty impressive for such a small city to have that many world champions. And then just the amount of talent even after that, here in Warren, Shavers and guys like that, just the talent that you had. You have some good fighters.
Sure.
But as far as champions themselves, though, that's to be world champion that's a huge feat. It's don't happen often, and to put five out in that short period of time was pretty impressive.
Well, I always love to hear, you and Ray were kind of the bookends, and Harry was a champ at the same similar time as Ray, but maybe just didn't get as much exposure. But for those guys to get exposure, for Harry and Greg Richardson and Jeff Lampkin, like I'm always excited about that because I always feel like they didn't reign as long as they didn't defend as many times as you and Ray did, and certainly like ABC Sports and Ray coming up in the 80s and being kind of part of that movement where boxing was still huge. And then, you went on to have so many great fights, the incredible comeback against Jermaine Taylor, and you fought Bernard Hopkins. I mean, you have fought and are now in the Hall of Fame, but have fought Hall of Fame fighters. You guys are kind of the bookends. To have attention brought to those guys where I think they didn't get as much attention, I'm always excited about that.
Oh, absolutely. And I love all them guys. They're all great people. Jeff Lampkin, I talk to him when we see him at events. Greg Richardson, I haven't seen in a while, but Greg's always been a class act. And then obviously I love Harry. Harry's
your guy,
my buddy. Yeah. And so that is, and that's why I say the five. I think it's cool, and there's a lot of people. Like I kind of want to keep rolling off of that. I want to my buddy Tony Hinchcliffe. I think he should have something. This guy, what he's doing right now, it's not sports, but he's one of the best roasters and comedians out there. And then another interesting thing, I just seen not too long ago, 3 years ago. I'm not sure about now, but like Youngstown, Mahoning, Trumbull County, Cleveland, Akron, per capita for most cities to put NFL players in.
Oh, sure.
Ray ranked number one.
Oh, yeah? Easy to see.
Yeah, and I'm going, geez, and that's all Northeast Ohio. And I'm like, we don't know a lot of our NFL players, though. We don't get a lot. Like, once they go to college and kind of, maybe the local media keeps up on it during college, but how about we kind of start putting out all those guys too, like Tony Hinchcliffe and the NFL players, even the ones that were in the NFL, prior, start acknowledging them.
Yeah. Well, there's a ton of talent from this area.
Yeah.
I mean, you mentioned Tony. I mean, we could start talking about different actors. You know, obviously you got Ed
O'Neill.
Yeah. You got Austin Pendleton from Warren. You got Catherine Bach. She was also from Warren. I mean, we could just continue to go on. We recently had she's a 5-time Academy Award nominee, and she didn't really get. And of course, you know, you don't think of like production design. I think a lot of times movies are like, if you're not an actor or you're not a director, you don't really get as much light shined on you, you know. But there's another person, you know, from Howland. You have somebody like Linda DeSena, or you have somebody recently, just the other day, the guy who just made one of the all-star teams in baseball as a pitcher, as a reliever, is from Howland. I forget his. I mean, a lot of times people are like, "Oh man," because sometimes the area gets shit on, right?
Yeah.
Like, "Oh, you're from Warren or Youngstown. There's nothing going on there." Like, man, look around you at the type of talent that's come out of this area.
Exactly, and that's a good point, because there really ain't though right now much, you know, in Youngstown, Warren. Why not? Grab as much positive as you can.
Amen.
You know, put all these people out. It just ain't like, listen, I love it, and I love the attention for being a boxing champion, but same time, you know, there's just so many. This is my area. Like, I want to be like, dude, we are bad.
Yeah.
We're bad dudes.
Yeah.
You know, look at
right.
this guy. Look at this dude. Look at this person. And then if we can't beat you up, we got look at Tony. We could roast you.
Yeah.
You know, like, we got actors. This and it is a pride thing, and I think it's cool as hell. And yeah, I'm into it, and I would love to eventually get like everyone out. Just have a huge. Maybe even start doing like a years, like induction ceremonies, you know.
That would be cool.
Do like 4 a year, so you can start really grabbing people in there and getting them put in. And yeah, showcase what the area put out there, you know.
Well, I think it's cool that you are always supporting things that are local. And you know, Liam and I were talking about earlier, and he was like, yeah, this guy could be anywhere, and he's back in his hometown in Youngstown, and he's putting his money where his mouth is. You know, he has a passion for helping people, and a lot of people that would be in your situation, I think, are kind of like, hey man, whatever, I made my millions, and I'm gonna go, like, you know, go live at the beach somewhere, whatever they're doing. You don't have to do this. You're putting in time and energy, and I mean this sincerely. Like, I want you to take care of yourself, because I don't want you to spread yourself too thin.
Well,
right?
That's what I was getting into real quick next. Like, my dad told me the other night, he was like, "Geez, man, you're retired." You know, like, you know, and we had our family vacation, went to Hawaii, which was nice, you know, but he was like, "You're gonna same thing you're saying." He's like, you got to slow down, man. You're retired. I was like, "Dad, this ain't work though. It's a project." You know what I mean? Like, this is a project that I took on. And it will drive me even more crazy. It'll drive me crazier than not finishing it, and not getting it done.
Yeah.
And then coming this far and just being, I can't do that.
We didn't come this far to only come this far.
And I wouldn't. So, believe me, I'll find ways to. We'll get this. You know, I'll be fine. I got good endurance. I was known for that. So, you know, we'll be okay. I could truck this one out.
Well. So you can help Kelly truck it out. Kelly Pavlik, charitableorganization.org. I'm making a contribution today because I love what he's doing and I believe in what he's doing. Make sure you guys, if you get an opportunity and you have time and you can get to Warren on August 2nd at the Warren Community Amphitheater, come see the show, see Zion and some of these other great fighters fight. I'm sure there'll be some other local, you know, fighters come by, you know, local celebrities, if you will, and Kelly will be there, and you can root him on to try to get into that ring with Jake Paul coming up, because I would love to see that fight, man.
If he takes the fight at 220 plus, I'm in. But if you tell
you got to
me,
make weight.
Yeah, if you tell me at this stage I got to make weight, no.
Yeah. Hey, I appreciate you coming on the show. As always, man, I always wish you the best, man.
No, I appreciate it. Thank you for having me. It's always a blast. And we'll catch up again, hopefully not 4 years from now, though.
Yeah, right. We'll do it sooner next time.
We're going to make it like a yearly thing.
Yeah, I like it.
Yeah, the seats are nice, too. butt's starting to hurt a little bit, though. So
We've been sitting here for almost 2 hours.
you gotta get one of them cushions.
Yeah. The next time I'll make sure I have more comfortable seats.
Yeah, just make sure you get that done. Buddy.
Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, Kelly Pavlik. Until the next time, stay electrified. Be kind to one another. You can check us out on theprodcast.net. And again, to contribute to Kelly's charitable organization, it's kellypavlikcharitableorganization.org. You go on there and you can click contribute. Go make a donation today, and let's help some of these young kids find their purpose and find their confidence and find their self-worth through boxing and through training and through discipline.
Yes.
Yeah. Appreciate you, man. Have a good one.